Yes, This song is called Be the Change, inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world.
Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. We are recording this on the last day of June of 2014. Oh my word. Snap of the fingers and half of this year's already gone. You know, Ramon, there's so much stuff going on in the world right now. And, you know, here recently, by the way, for those who may be following this, I still have no response from that senator that I know on the chemtrails question or the geoengineering question I posed him. So I will.
Boy, that's so nice.
Yeah, that's it's 3 weeks now, and haven't heard a thing. So all I heard, I talked to him about a week ago, and he said I have some of my asked my policy staff to look into it. Oh, come on. I wonder if that's just the polite brush off.
Sounds like a brush off to me.
Yeah, it does, kind of, doesn't it? Well,
but
you know, I see this guy.
I
see this guy, you know, probably average 3 or 4 times a week, so in person. So I will not let go of it personally. You know me. So I went to ECETI this last weekend, and my nephew Jake went with me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we had a great time. The speakers were all awesome. Weather could have been a little bit better. It was still pretty amazing. You know, Ramon, last time you were there or the time before, I can't remember which one it was that we busted the clouds up. Time before, in 2010, right?
It was the first year we met.
Yeah, so we actually, 2 nights in a row, busted up the clouds right above the ranch there and had that ring. I mean, both nights the ring, where we had the clear sky directly above us and clouds all around us. So didn't really see a whole lot that was really amazing in the skies. Saw a couple of pairs of something flying over. Didn't have the websites up to cross-check with the satellites, but I don't know that there are any two that fly together in parallel up there. So
yeah, I don't think satellites can do that actually.
Yeah. So, anyways, it was really good. It was really good. It was absolutely gorgeous yesterday and this morning when we left. And man, I just wish I could have stayed longer, I suppose. Although energetically, I'll tell you at that place, you know, it's like you spent 3 weeks there. It can definitely drain you down, and you can be ready to go home.
Yeah, when I was there for 3 weeks, it was different.
Well, if you're going to be there an extended period, I imagine you'd get over some kind of an energetic hump where then you'd get on an even keel.
Yeah, I don't know, it was kind of smooth for me. Everything was very different, but it was very smooth ride. It was just that one day when everybody was really tired, they went to sleep early. I was kind of like awake by myself, and that was kind of creeped me out. You know, such a big place by yourself.
Yeah. Oh, it was so clear last night. I laid on my back out in the field and looked at the Milky Way. Saw the big Milky Band, and it was gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. My telescope was sitting there not being used. Oh, so you find anything on the news you want to throw out there this week, Ron?
Yeah, just one of the big things Hawaii now has a landing pad, a UFO landing pad. That's all Michael Sala stuff up in Hawaii.
Is
I'm
it
trying to,
is that the one? I heard they were building one or getting funding for to turn someplace into one.
yeah, it's I saw the news article. That's what I was trying to find. I just found the older one I had that I put up, but yeah, he has it up and going. Oh, here it goes. Let's see. So, sorry.
Huh? Huh?
Hawaii is about to have a UFO landing pad. The Hawaiian Kingdom has approved the installation of a UFO landing pad and will be holding a ceremony to dedicate the land on Friday. The landing pad will be called the Hawaii Star Visitors Sanctuary and will be placed on the land of Uncle Robert's oh sorry, I can't pronounce this name. Keliho'omalu, a
Wow.
Hawaiian
Those,
noble.
those Hawaiian names are awesome.
Yeah, he owns the Uncle Robert's Awa Bar and Farmers Market in the town of Kalapana, right, in the Puna district of Hawaii Big Island. Oh, that would be the
So,
perfect place
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
I love Big Island.
that's not surprising that it's been endorsed by the Kingdom of Hawaii. That's the star visitors are so deeply embedded in their culture. Yeah, it's common knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, they talk about it in their legend and the dolphins and everything. The news I was looking for, it just reminded me when you said that is I couldn't find it, but um India is the first country to make dedicate the dolphins whales to be how did they word it, non-human beings, so they have to have the same rights as human beings in India.
Really?
Yes, so no longer they can be kept in captivities or kept for people's entertainment.
So they've been
Nothing
deemed
like that.
maybe the term sentient being, is that what they use?
They didn't use sentient being, but we can use that term, um, which I just found absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
and not surprising that that came out of India.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that places like Hawaii and other places like that really push for that too as well.
That's impressive. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
that's really impressive.
So,
Finally, the acknowledgement.
yep. So we've got a really
Language is more difficult than ours. Go ahead. Sorry.
we've got a really special guest for you guys tonight. We're gonna get her on here, but just to say that before we get going, even before I read the bio, you guys know that I'm an energy fiend, right? I sense energy, and at least I've proven to myself to be pretty good at it as far as the thumbs up or thumbs down type of discernment that I use. Anyways, I came across this lady and I was like, oh my God, I love her energy already just by reading this bio on her. And so I knew right away that we had to get her on the show. We've got Patti Conklin with us. Patti grew up in Brooktondale, New York, starting out in a nonprofit world. She held many exciting and interesting jobs, such as Director of Women in Literacy, Laubach Literacy International, overseeing $11 million campaign in 30 countries throughout Africa, Asia, and South America. The Southeast Regional Director Canine Championships for Independence, West Regional Director of Make-A-Wish Foundation, Development Director of Girl Scouts of America, Michigan, just to name a few. Oh, my word. Patti Conklin, busy woman. Patti Conklin, Ph.D., medical intuitive, is a vibrational intuitive with exceedingly rare vision and the unique ability to pull disease out of the physical body. Patti is a lecturer and a teacher of vibrational medicine. the method of improving health and wellness through the natural neutralization of negative vibration in the cells of the body. She's an incredibly sensitive and perceptive individual with a highly sought after and a highly sought after international speaker who shares her exceptional abilities in her workshops and private practice. Both the Founders Awards from the International Medical and Dental Hypnotherapy Association in 2004 and the President's Award in 2004 from the International Association of Counselors and Therapists are among her many honors, along with induction into the International Hypnosis Hall of Fame in 1995. Oh, Ramon, we have a Hall of Famer. Patti's been labeled by colleagues, physicians, and clients as one of the greatest medical intuitives of the 21st century. Patti is the author of God Within, The Day God's Train Stopped. And it's a tell-all book that recounts the experiences, visitations, and lessons Patti's been faced with in learning and accepting her mission in this life, to teach others to become insubstantial without transitioning. Patti's been written about with appreciation and respect by authors in more than 10 books, including Soul Agreements by Dick Sutphin, I think. Yeah, Sutphin. Miracles of the Casa by Jose Ravenwing, or Josie Ravenwing. Sorry, Josie. And Radical Reminiscence by Dr. Kelly Turner. Oh, that one was easy. Unstuff Yourself with Nancy Barwick, Ph.D., One Day at a Time. David M. Sloan, The Faces Behind the Pages That Inspire by Lori Rikowski, just to name a few. Her website is www.patticonklin.com, and I am totally out of breath now. Welcome to our show, Patti.
Thank you so much. Wow, that sounds like a lot that they put out there.
I just absolutely had to read all through this whole bio because I am so impressed with what you've accomplished so far in your life already. So my applause to you. And wow, you're one of those people. Like I said, I knew immediately that I had to have you on the show. Your energy just glows. So,
thank you. It's been a fun adventure.
Oh, I bet. So Patti, a little bit about yourself for our audience out there. What got you started in this direction? I mean, it seems like your life was going a little bit different way before you found something else, right?
Well, I had, when I got out of high school, I actually doubled up my junior and senior year and graduated when I was 16 and started nonprofit work. But I had my first, what I considered to be a visitation at 7. And I was told 3 things. I was told that 38 to 42 would be my greatest growth years, and 42 to 62 would be my greatest contribution to humanity, and I could come home then if I wanted. And the purpose of my walk was to teach people to become insubstantial without transitioning. And even though I was pretty precocious, I didn't know what that meant. But I knew it wasn't going to start for a while. And I was incredibly blessed with being given all of these positions that took me around the world, because my favorite time as a teenager was literally sitting on the street corner and watching people think and watching words form in the hemisphere of their brain and then go down into their body and store. And I didn't really know that other people didn't see this way. I was very much an introvert, still really am as an adult. And so I never really discussed it with anyone. It was actually Carl Sagan, when he was at Cornell. He and I got together sitting down one night at a Christmas party, and we started talking, and he just kept saying, "Patti, you are so weird. People don't look at the world this way. You know, the way you're describing it is more quantum physics than spiritual or intuition." And we used to love just getting together and arguing over that. But he was the one who really pushed me to get tested. And so I was still in nonprofit world, but in my late 20s got tested and found that I had a genius IQ, but that my brainwave pattern was incredibly much faster than an average human, about 250%. So the scientists and doctors kind of called me a walking MRI.
Hmm.
And, the different countries that I went to allowed me to look at frequency and how people stored and got so I could manipulate frequency really well. And right before my 38th birthday, I had another visitation and was told to move my family to Hartwell, Georgia, and fully begin walking the path I had been asked to walk as a child. And within 5 minutes, I had resigned from my director position at Canine Companions. And here I am 18 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So you've had
Just the
this,
Carl Sagan part is amazing.
yeah, you've had this full awareness your whole life, since 7 at least, right?
Oh, earlier, yeah. Yeah, and my earliest recollection was age 3. And
Wow.
I remember my mother sitting in the kitchen with one of her friends. And I walked in and they were just having coffee. And I literally looked at her friend. And to me, it was perfectly normal. But I looked at her friend and I saw sperm go into an egg. And I knew she had just conceived a baby.
Wow.
And I knew it was a sperm and I knew it was an egg. And so I jumped up and down and I said, "Oh, you're gonna have a baby." And they started laughing and she looked at me and she said, "No, I'm not." And as soon as she said that, her body shifted. And because I was only 3 years old, I said, "Oh, but you're gonna die when the baby's born."
Uh-oh.
And my mother backhanded me real good. And
Wow.
9 months later, her best friend was dead. And,
Wow.
I really believe that people are born fully knowing, but I think most of them forget or their parents say you're wrong. At the age of 3, that was such a powerful experience that I knew what I was seeing in the world was correct
Right.
and what everybody else's illusion of it was incorrect, at least as far as I was concerned. So yeah, so then I went into observation mode, went into nonprofit mode, because I was really good at it. And again, it allowed me to travel the world to see the different energies and frequencies according to how people think and how they speak. Got to go on the UFO circuit for a while and just kind of look at pictures when they were putting out pictures. Stephen Greer would put out pictures of UFOs, and I think at one point he had about 200 pictures. And I looked through the pictures, and I'm like, "Yep, there's only one here in Brazil of a
Oh,
frequency that I can't identify." And that's the
oh.
one that I would say is not from here. And so it's just given me an absolutely wonderful ride. It's just been awesome.
What were your parents like? Obviously, they must have been okay with the UFO thing or believed in it themselves.
Nope, it's interesting. My parents were incredibly fearful of me. By the time I was 7, my mother forbid me to speak in the house, and I had to put everything in writing to her. She didn't want to hear the sound of my voice, and she
Oh,
died 3 years ago. And I had called her. I would call home maybe once a year, see how they were doing, and she just said, "I have to tell you, I've just hated you your entire life, and I don't know why." And I was just able, it was so cool. And I just said, "I'm so thankful that you've really been finally able to be honest with yourself." And I said, "Don't feel badly about it, because the isolation that you forced me into made me fully believe in myself, absolutely trust in myself and trust that voice that I heard. And I've had a glorious life. And had I not trusted to that level, I don't think I ever would have developed into who I am."
right.
But my parents throughout my lifetime never asked what job I was doing, what I was doing. I'd say, "Gee, I'm going to be doing a TV show, a radio show near you. If you want to come, I'll get you on board." And they're like, "No, that's okay."
Hmm.
So, but I really do believe it happens that way for a reason.
Well,
You don't
that is,
get.
yeah, that is definitely one thing that we kind of lose sight of, the fact that even though through the trauma that we experience, or the unpleasant events in our lives that we experience and that seem to be perpetrated by someone else, if those events wouldn't have happened, you wouldn't be who you were. And we lose sight of the fact that they are just playing their part in this whole play themselves. So
Absolutely.
when I came to that, I was able to really start forgiving.
Yep. Yeah, people will say, how can you forgive them? And I'm like, I have this vision of them standing up, whether it's angels, God, creator, I mean, whatever it is that's up there, and saying, okay, this is your next gig. You're going to go in and you're going to, give birth to 4 children, and you're going to isolate one to the extent that the only voice she'll ever trust is mine. My parents did their job to perfection, and what is there to be upset about? I mean, I just think that you have to take those 10 steps back and look at the totality of what you've been able to experience and be blessed with.
It's much bigger than one person on one level, and it's just as big as one person on the other.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
If that doesn't confuse all you guys out there, I don't know what will.
Your voice always does it, Tom.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Thanks.
If you can best describe to us how is it that you see exactly? I mean, I know it's kind of hard to describe without letting us borrow your eyes.
If you're watching television and the cable goes out and you get snow,
Yes.
that's literally my world. Everything is in a grayscale. And so, like, I may be able to tell you that that color is green, but I would never be able to tell you what shade of green. I could tell you it was brown, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what shade of brown it is. And that's only by learning through the years, the vibration, the particles of the different colors. My sons, when they were teenagers, they would just get so exasperated with me because I'd get ready to go out on a date and I'd come out, and I think I'd be looking great. And they would just groan and they'd look at each other going, who's going to take her back and dress her? And I'm like, what? I'm matching. And they're like, you're not even close. You're just not even close. So it's all grayscale. And if I see something that I've never experienced before, I have to feel it like a blind person. In order to get the frequency patterns of the particles to come into shape. So I'm aware of what I'm looking at. I had my house remodeled, about 7 years ago, and I just sold it this spring, and I was taking the people through that were buying it, and they're like, oh, that's a beautiful window there. And I look up and I'm like, oh, there is a window there. Yes, I had just, it wasn't in my sphere, so I wasn't aware of it until I became aware of it. And there's times, if I'm in Ireland or someplace that has a high frequency of stones and so forth, usually I have to have, the kids have their own kids now. So typically I have to have somebody with me to take me by the hand because I can't tell if I'm, walking up a step, walking out the street, walking off a cliff. Everything becomes so mired in frequency that I'm blind.
So what does the human frequency look like to you?
The human frequency, if I had to put it on a scale of saying 100% being highly vibratory. The humans are at about 38 to 40% of their true capabilities. My capability, I would estimate, is at 80 to 85%. I have literally melted into the wall with my sons present and them going hysterical and becoming the frequency of the wall. They had a list, seriously, when they started dating of what I'm not allowed to do if they bring a girl home and introduce her to me.
No melting into the wall is one of them, huh?
Exactly.
What's the point then?
But it was interesting when you were talking about the dolphins at the beginning of the show, because the one thing that's really fascinating with dolphins and whales is they have an energy vortex right at the fin that's on top. I don't know what it's called.
The dorsal fin.
Dorsal fin. There's an energy vortex right there. And you can literally, if you tune into their frequency, you can see them disappear and reappear. Really fascinating.
Wow.
And yeah.
That reminds me, I went diving in Hawaii. I think, it was on Big Island. and we brought an underwater camera, and I was taking pictures of them. And I got one picture with an orb right on his, what would be his or hers forehead.
Yep.
And it was just, whenever you like swim, when their bubbles are coming up and you swim in those bubbles, it's just beyond amazing.
It is. It is. And it was actually the Big Island when I first got in the water with the dolphins and started noticing it. It was really interesting to see that kind of energy field, and a much higher energy field than human beings. But for humans, unless somebody says something, most of the time I don't even know they're there. They have to speak to me in order for the frequencies, the particles. I mean, we're just looking at particles to condense into a human shape. So, for example, if I saw you somewhere, I would remember you by your energy signature, not your facial features, because I don't really see those, and can get myself in big trouble. I was with a bunch of friends, and we were in LA, and I was getting ready to do a lecture, and I just started dating a guy from New York, and he was flying in for the lecture, and he was late, and we were all down at the restaurant, and I saw him walking down, towards us, and I went running out, and I jumped in his arms. I'm like, "Oh, honey, you're here!" And my best friend was beside me, and it's like, "Patty, that's not him." And I'm like, but he had a similar enough frequency, and I didn't take the time to look.
Wow.
Yeah, I got confused. So, but it really is just, I guess the snow on the television is really the best example.
So I'm curious, have you witnessed energy workers or healers while they were performing their work with your vision? And I'm curious what that looked like. If you could actually see the flow between.
Most, yes. I'll answer in the short version, yes. But most energy workers work within the auric field. And that's an energy field that I don't really work with. So I will watch them work with the auric field and manipulate that and change it and so forth, and get it into a good consistency and a good order. But I really believe that the auric field was added on about 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. And
what is that exactly?
The auric field?
The auras.
Yes.
The auras.
Oh, auras. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 7 layers outside of the body. I believe that when we came to this planet, we came with the subtle energy field, which in science we would equate as our immune system, and that we managed to become dense and be out of sync with the universe. And we added on the aura, the auric field, in order to stay in alignment with the universe. And I think over the last, 5,000-6,000 years, we've managed to muck it up. So a lot of the workers, are taught Reiki and therapeutic touch and essential oils and crystals and so forth. But so many of them work in that field. And I just encourage them, go deeper. Go deeper, go into the subtle energy field. That's where you're really going to get the vibrational shift of the human taking place versus the temporary vibrational shift. If that makes sense.
For myself, I can't see color. Very rarely I do. Usually it's on women. But what I am able to see, I'm able to see, like, it kind of looks like the best description can be like a white shadow. So if you take someone's shadow and then turn it clear white, then that's what I would see.
That's what I see there most of the time. Yeah.
And the other thing that I see too is it's kind of hard to describe. It looks, the best description would be like a bunch of little atoms running around like an
the snowy field.
The snowy field.
Sparkly,
but it's
sparkling,
clear.
The sparkling,
it's clear or
snowy
yellowish
field is what I get.
Well,
Yeah.
And you've got to remember that every single one of us vibrate at a different rate. And so where some people you may see that whitish clear, and other times you see that yellowish, it will really depend upon what your frequency rate is with them and how those two merge. And that will also then define how you communicate with each other. When I was in Japan, in my early 20s, they allowed me to go to a private ceremony at one of the temples, and one of the monks had a jet black aura, and he was amazing. He was just amazing. And just, people get beliefs of what color really means. But if we can stop that and get away from the emotional component and just look at the frequency of the color. I don't see color myself when I'm working with myself or when I'm working with most people. I've just gotten so used to working with the frequency. But understand that the color is not going to stay the color for every single person. So you allow yourself the freedom of being able to see different things, because that just says that's how you're talking in the frequency with that other individual.
So let me get this right. When what you do see, say a lower vibration or lower frequency would be the darker shades, and the higher the lighter shades.
Yeah. But the thing to remember in this kind of work and in my kind of work is that we're actually going in and removing emotion from the peptides within the cell. And in doing so, we need an active frequency. So color and tone are the active frequencies that can literally go into your cells. What's interesting is the sicker that someone is, let's say they're stage 4 cancer or whatever, typically the color that they'll bring in first is black or brown. And you'll get this hysteria of, oh my gosh, that's horrible. That means I'm going to die. And it's like, no, that's actually really good, because it's so dense and it's so slow moving that it violently shakes the cells, and the emotions fall out of the peptides into your system, and you actually detox from that. So the darker the color, the more work you're actually doing. The greens, the whites, the purples, those are beautiful colors and they make you feel wonderful. But in order to get the real work done, those darker colors are going to come in. Yeah.
Right. So when you're walking down the street and you see somebody just all black as hell, it looks like you go, whoa, that dude's doing the work.
Doing the work. It's like, really recognizing that because we associate on frequency. I've got so many friends in the past life world, and they say, well, if you meet somebody you don't like, or they've got a lower vibration, a negative energy, you were together in a past life and you didn't, it didn't fare too well. And I'm kind of like, no, their frequency is lower than yours and it doesn't feel good. And when you meet somebody that you really like, you've got similar frequencies, and you tend to hit it off really well. So I think it's just important to remember that, get the emotional association. People have been using that for years, and it kind of holds them out of responsibility to shift things. And it's like, no, change is within yourself and your frequency within yourself. And the more you change, then the more you perceive others as not being negative or positive, but just being the frequency that they are.
Right. So you've had a little help along the way understanding what was going on. I'm curious, what were the beings, or did you actually get a visual of the beings that you interacted in your early childhood, the 3-year-old and beyond?
It's been pretty much what I call father. I didn't know what God was or any of that, and I heard a male voice, and people go, well, who says God is male? And it's like, no, I don't think it works that way. I think that whatever you trust the most will be the tonal quality that you'll hear.
Right.
And I had more trust of the male gender at that point, still do, than the female. And so for me, it was a male voice that I termed father, or God, but not in that Christian sense. but
Right.
just as the creator, as the source. Throughout my lifetime, there's been a couple of books that have been written about exorcisms and exorcisms that I've been called in on. And I remember the first time I was called in on one, people say, well, what do you do? Do you call to, Archangel Michael? Do you take holy water? And I remember looking at the person going, why would I call Archangel Michael? I mean, what can Michael do that I can't do? If I get in trouble, I'm going to call my dad. I just, it's so he's really been that pivotal piece when I'm receiving information. Then it's a visitation, it's a waking visitation. It will happen at some point during the day. If I'm going through a personal shift, then Jesus always comes, which is kind of amazing to me because I don't really relate to that. But he will always be the one who shows up if it's a personal shift in my life. So Father is really kind of the guiding force. If he tells me to move, I move. If he tells me to stop a lecture and go pull, cancer out of somebody's body and turn green in front of the audience, then I do that and finish my
Right.
lecture and go to my room and get sick and get rid of it. But so kind of those two.
Yeah,
And
Jesus has gotten a bad rap here in recent years.
hmm
We've got so many people that are basically bailing out of Christianity, going,
uh-huh.
what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And are actually starting to do research and finding out that things don't add up like they should within something that you're trusting in like that.
Yeah.
So he's gotten a little bit of a bad rap for that. There's, people talk about, oh, there's been more people killed because of Christianity than anything else on this planet. Well, that may be true. But people don't understand that this being was around before Christianity, and that
That's
he was a
right.
teacher, and then what he brought here, though it may have had to happen for one reason or another, it was a teaching tool that's been left here on the planet, and that
Yeah.
there's
I
too many
totally agree.
daggers and knives are thrown that direction, and I love him dearly myself. So
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that his presence, people will say, well, what, do you believe that Jesus, was the Son of God? And I'm like, or God or whatever. And I'm like, I think he was a son. And I think he had that piece that I call the divine spark or the spark of the universe at a much greater degree than any of us,
right,
and showed us what we can be if we're truly listening and using the divine in all of us. That we've had many great teachers, and we just seem to forget about that.
right,
Um, but I think it really is about that presence. I laughed about 8 years ago. I knew I was starting to go through a major change personally, and I only sleep 3 hours a night. I sleep from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. And I hadn't been able to sleep. I'd been working a lot, and I knew that it was getting close to a visitation, and Jesus only comes to me in my dreams, and I hadn't been able to sleep. So I was at a party, and I came back and I looked at my message on my phone and caller ID, and that there was a message. So I hit the message button. There was nothing. So I look at the caller ID, and it said God's son, and he called twice.
oh no.
Seriously, I took a picture of it. It was just amazing. It was God's son, even an apostrophe, and I knew that he had been trying to reach me to tell me that life was gonna, shift, and it did.
Wow, that
Um,
that is something else.
yeah,
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 I mean, I think all of us get experiences something like that that just are completely unexplainable at some point in our lives, just to give us maybe it's kind of a bait, a little. Here's a little bait. Are you going to go off and really try to ask the big questions?
hmm
And then when you do finally ask the big questions, you remember back to that time. Oh my God, that time that I fell out of that tree and should have died?
hmm
you know?
Yep, very much so,
Yeah.
very much so. Eh,
I've had a few myself. So
Yep.
and almost everybody that I've talked to that's opened up has had something along those lines. Some miraculous event had happened. So.
Hmm. Well,
Actually, I
and that's
literally fell out of the tree and fell on my neck. I
Oh,
remember
so
tucking
did
my
I, and that's
head.
kind of why I use that. But
wow.
so, Ramon, where to? You've been quiet over there, buddy.
You've been hogging up the mic.
Oh.
um, w- when you going to the sleeping thing, only sleeping 3 hours. I hear that a lot from people who either like Qigong masters, especially from Qigong masters. I hear that a lot. Um, is that a normal thing you think for anybody who lifts their frequency up high? Because I've met several people that say the same thing. They sleep 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and they don't need more.
Yeah, I think it is. It's the vibration. It's how your brain is going. And for me to get 3 hours of sleep, I have to take 4 pills to get
Oh,
3 hours.
I
I can typically go 5 or 6 nights without sleep. And then I'll just have that 3 hours again. That's all I need again. But I think it's just the frequency and because you're living at it. You're not just raising your frequency when you're working with someone. Your frequency is high all the time. And so, every gift has its downside. And so sleep is one. Two is if somebody's in your presence for too long, living with someone is really hard on the other person. They eventually end up, and I across the board, some of the Qigong masters that I've spoken with, is that their partner will have a nervous breakdown because the body has gotten so dense that it's hard to be around a high vibration for any length of time without starting to experience emotional upheaval. So we tend to, in public, bring our frequencies down, which is very taxing, very exhausting. Because if I just walked into a room at full vibration rate, virtually everyone starts crying because their emotions, their cells get hit so hard. So you really have to
That
be
might be
careful.
a good thing.
I found on my end that it's actually very draining energetically on me when I do that too.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. And so, it's one of those things that I learned to do as a kid because people just got so emotional around me. And as I said, I was an introvert anyways. And so it just kind of pulled me more in. So while I love, teaching and lecturing and doing shows like this, it's hard to get me to go out. It's hard to get me to go out in a social situation. I would rather stay home and have silence
Hmm.
and just kind of regroup that way.
No, now I know that we can call you at any time for an interview.
There you go.
She can
I'll
work
be
with my
awake.
time for once.
I've actually been working with a gentleman from Japan, so yeah, we've been working with his time frame. Yeah,
Yeah. So are you on the East Coast or West Coast?
East Coast.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it doesn't matter what the hour is, Ramon.
No, no, I'm thinking because if I go to the States in December, like I'm hoping, I would love to run into you.
Georgia, Atlanta. It's pretty easy to get to.
Oh, there you go.
It's a little not too far from Florida.
No, just a state away. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole sleeping lesson, I found, and I've mentioned this quite a few times on the show here in the last couple of years, that as I continue to grow, my body just naturally seems to, I need less sleep and less food.
Hmm.
And my whole diet just naturally and organically changed in the last 5 years, in the last 4 years actually. I was eating meat 4 or 5 times a week, and now it's maybe once a month.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just been a phenomenal change in what I'm eating now. I mean, a lot of fresh vegetables and fruits, and it just tastes good to me now.
It tastes good. When I'm home, I'm pretty much a vegetarian. But when I'm out on the road, if you put me in front of 2,000 people who are pulling on me and wanting to be healed or just energetically pulling, when I get off stage, I want a steak and I want a Guinness, and you don't have to bother cooking the steak. Just give it to
There
me
you
raw.
go.
But my protein so dramatically drops when I get off stage or in front of a group. I need a steak and a Guinness. And so I'll keep that routine up. And I remember people just will call in on radio shows going, well, she must not be very evolved. She eats meat and drinks beer. And it's like, no, I think I'm evolved enough to know that my body, the protein, is depleted so greatly.
Right.
And, a piece of salmon or, whatever's just not going to do it.
We've
And then when I get home, I get back.
humanity's been eating meat from day one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard other people say that, and I've met, because you get these religious vegetarians, and
Radical vegetarians.
yeah, and they're like, the only way to evolve is this way, and and the people who are actually I have met that evolved, they said the same thing you said, like, when I'm around big groups, I need a steak and a glass of wine or something like that.
Yes.
And it's always people that they don't have to say anything. I could just stand in front of them, and like you said, you want to start crying around them because their energy is just so high.
Yeah.
So it's hilarious to hear that.
Well, it's nice, because I don't socialize when I'm on the circuit. I don't socialize with other speakers, and I tend to just be a lone horse when I'm on the road, and I travel about 100,000 miles a year, and slowly bringing that down a little bit, but just being able to get out and be, and I remember being in Brazil in Bahia. And I was walking down the street, and it was such a high frequency that I felt comfortable being totally open. And I remember two men coming towards me, and they're looking at me. And as I got closer, both of them just got on their knees and bowed. And the female in me was like, "Get up, please." I'm mortified. And they were just so respectful because they really recognize the frequency.
Yeah,
were they shamans?
Their vision was open enough to be able to see your energy.
Yeah. I didn't speak with them, but I'm assuming they were because of the way they were behaving and acting as they drew nearer and watching me. And I had just totally opened up. It was just a beautiful day, and there weren't many people around, and I love being by the coast anyways. So yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, you look back in our the old art, the historical art collections, right? The Vaticans and all the different churches. They show all the saints and people there with these auras around them, the glowing, or the halo, right? That's what that's all about. I think, at least that's the way I interpret that iconography within Christianity, anyways. And I think
same as Buddhism, though.
Right, it's spread out through a lot of different religions.
And Hinduism as well.
Yeah. All of them, but it's interesting what people will remember and what they'll see according to what their belief system is. I remember years ago when global sciences was still around in Denver. I was speaking at one of the conferences, and I always open up slowly during a conference. The BBC has filmed me turning into just a white light, and the cameraman ran out of the room. But I was on stage in Denver, and I was slowly opening up incrementally so people could start seeing the shift of my physical form. And when I got off stage, a guy came up to me and he was crying. And he's like, that was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And we talked for a few more minutes, and he was a NASA scientist. He was a NASA engineer, and just happened to fly out and decide to come. And that wasn't even his genre of interest. But he heard me on a radio show, and he wanted to experience it. It was very cool that he could get out of his linear brain and actually embrace the energy. It was nice. Yeah.
That story reminds me of one time I was watching World Traveler, and she was in in Colombia, and they were going down to some of the pyramids, the not so famous pyramids, deep in the jungle. And the shaman was the guide, and the whole time he kept his eyes and face down. And I just thought, like, oh, he must be really shy, not much confidence or something. And the whole time, and finally once he looked at the camera, and it was this bright purple, like so obvious, and the camera just clicked off, went into something else real quick, and I was like, what was that? And it was on cable TV, so I couldn't rewind or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I was just so amazed that the camera actually picks these things up.
It really does. And it will actually pick up the facial feature shift, because sometimes when I'm working, I will look like I'm 10 years old. And then as I'm pulling a disease out of somebody, I'll look 100 years old and just kind of flip-flop, and the camera will pick it up. And it's pretty fascinating to look at it later and go, wow, okay. So what I really began realizing was the more that I was working and keeping my frequency high, the younger I looked. And so if I was somewhere and men in their 20s or early 30s would start noticing me, then I knew that I had to go home and get some sleep. I'd been working too much. My frequency had been open too much. It's like, no, go home, take some time off. And so I really got into a routine of, traveling for 5 weeks and taking 5 weeks off, and traveling for 5 weeks and taking 5 weeks off, and having that alone time to just kind of regroup and think and just make sure that, I think it's really critical at this stage of my life that if I ever get upset about something, that I literally sit down and go deep within and look at what I'm upset about. So it's rare for me to actually get upset about anything anymore. But when my kids were growing up, I think they were in junior high, and I'd had a really emotional day, and Daniel came home and he started turning on lights, and all the light bulbs were blown. And he looked at me and he said, kind of an emotional day, huh?
Wow.
Had some issues. And I'm like, please just change out the light bulbs. And he just started laughing, and that became a routine for them, is changing out light bulbs, because I just wasn't, in those early days, everything repetitive motion, especially when the children started coming and I had repetitive motion. I couldn't do it. There was just something about it that would just make me get severe anxiety. So when the boys were 6 and 7 years old, the two biological, they sat me down, and the 7-year-old looked at me and said, Mom, Matt and I are beginning to realize you're not like other mothers. And I'm like, okay. and he said, I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but you can't cook and your housekeeping isn't much better. I'm like, those are fair statements. And he said, I'm taking over the cooking, and Matthew will take over the cleaning of the house. And for the next 10 years, I didn't walk in my kitchen. I could come home from Bangladesh at 2:00 in the morning, and he'd have homemade chicken soup waiting for me on the stove. They really understood very young that there were things that I was just not capable of in the mother routine.
It sounds like an amazing support staff incarnated in here to help you on your mission.
Absolutely. I mean, my friends kept saying, you do not have normal sons. They don't backtalk. They don't disrespect you. They listen to what you ask of them. And not only that, but they're doing all the cooking and the cleaning and handling things. And I remember when Dan was 17, I'd come home. I'd been on a 5-week tour, and I came home and I was in the chair, and he looked at me and he said, would you like a cup of tea or would you like a beer? And I said, yeah, I think I'd love a cup of tea. And he brought me this cup of tea, and he kissed me on the forehead, and he looked me in the eye, and he said, do you understand how much I love and respect you? And I said, I really appreciate that. And I said, I'm really looking forward to the day that you and Matthew decide to join me. And he lifted up my hand, and he kissed the back of my hand, and he just looked me straight in the eye, and he said, don't you understand? Matt and I are here to help you. We won't do any work until after you're gone. And that was that's how it's always been. And people think that I talk to the boys a lot about the work. And there's certainly there is support, but they seem to have an innate knowledge
Right.
of,
How can
you
they
know,
not living around this energy all their lives?
yeah, yeah. So,
Being born
when
of this energy.
being born of the energy. And Matthew is very similar to me in my energy frequency. And so if I need help, if I'm doing a really big show, then he'll come with me to kind of hold energy. He now has a 20-month-old son, so he's not traveling as much. And Dan is certainly the sage. He's the one who was pre-verbal at a year old. By the age of 2, he already had a 10-year-old comprehension level.
Wow.
But when he was 13 months old, still in diapers, he was washing off a table. And he just had a little sponge and he was washing up the countertop. And I said, that's great. Thank you so much. And he's just scrubbing away. He's 13 months old. And he looked at me and he said, my other mommy always let me clean the table. And I looked at him and I said, what other mommy? And he laid down the sponge and he looked at me and he said, obviously, I need to explain something to you. It's the only time in my life I had ever gotten a chill go through my spine. And I said, obviously you do. And he said, it took God a while to get you and Daddy ready for me. And it did. It took me 5 years to conceive. And he said, so he gave me another mommy and daddy to live with while I was waiting for you. And I said, what do you remember? And he said, I don't remember my dad very much, but I remember my mom. I can still feel her hugs. And his little arms are just giving himself a hug. And I said, what happened? And he said, I was 9 years old and got hit by a car because you were ready for me now. And just amazing. And when I wrote the book, which actually I wrote about 16 years ago, he wrote the intro to the intro. On the book. He's like, I want to write the intro. And he's an author himself. But his pre-verbal skills were just amazing because he could tell me what he perceived. And we didn't have a television in the house. We didn't have a radio in the house. I never left him alone with anyone. So there was no way for him to get that information other than memory.
Right.
That he brought with him. Yeah.
Right. Amazing. So we're at the top of the hour already, if you can believe that.
Really?
This has flown by.
Wow.
So what's going on with you? Have you got anything coming up that people should know about? And where can we get people get a hold of the book at?
They can get the book on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, and it's in a lot of bookstores around the country, the United States at least. And it's God Within, The Day God's Train Stopped. And they can get in touch with me at patticonklin.com. And Patti is with an I, so it's PATTICONKLIN.com. They can reach my office that way and book appointments or get the book or some of the CDs.
Any lectures or voyages out and about the world planned?
Yeah, I'll be in Buffalo Fellowship of the Spirit in August, the first weekend of August, and Buffalo, New York, and then Syracuse, New York in September, Ozark Research Institute in September. October, I'll be co-headlining the Ohio Expo with the co-star of Paranormal State, and I can't remember her name right off, but she and I will be headlining the Ohio Holistic Expo.
Nice.
In October. Yeah.
All right, guys.
How many books do you have in total?
This is the I wrote this one 16 years ago, and it's the first one, but the publisher called last week to see if I was going to do another one and not wait 16 years to release it. So right now this is the first one.
Well, great job on it. And if anybody out there listening on one of those other venues, the iTunes or the YouTubes, the Vimos, wherever you may be tuning in at, and would like to check out more of the 100th Monkey Radio and Hour 2 of Patti Conklin, I urge you to go over to www.100thmonkeyradios.com, and you'll find it all there.
This song is called Be the Change.
All right, my friends, we shall see you in the second
Inspired
hour.
by the words
Condemnation
of Mahatma
without
Gandhi,
investigation is the height of ignorance.
who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loo. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change
that you wanna see in the world. Like God need live for peace,
aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs. Like Martin Luther King,
aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
light
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, it's love to me.
My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score to maintain an archaic platform of power and greed. People fight for land out of survival and need. So I'm killing my television and I'm planting a seed to fill my head with knowledge that I'm seeing recede. Due to the media propaganda, killing my creed. Or what don't kill me make me stronger, feeling straight when I bleed. Fighting for interest and forward to attach the feet. They try to sell you anything in this world, nothing for free. Land, air, fire, and water, they keep up in the ante, while the anti-proletariat told the powers to be. But we keep fighting, surviving and thriving, recycling and rhyming. We constantly inclining, we see through the lying and prying. They tactically keep trying to keep you from asking the why.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi live for peace,
aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs. Like Martin Luther King,
aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
light
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha, it's love to me.
We find solutions, different possibilities, creating organizations like Aspire to Be, inspiring young minds to see, building life skills, nurturing creativity, fulfilling the youth's basic needs, listening actively, teaching the tools to succeed, positive role models, we plant the seed, the roots drink the water which feed the trees, someone help me, giving back is my responsibility.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi live for peace,
aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs. Like